Narrator's voice is warm yet trembling, like a woman holding back tears, speaking into a microphone late at night. Have you ever stared into the darkness of your own home, wondering if the people who raised you truly love you? Or if love is just a word they whisper when it's easy? I used to think family was unbreakable, that no matter how deep the cracks ran, we'd always hold each other up. But one rainy night at 2 a.m., everything I believed shattered like glass under my feet. My name is Elena. I'm 32 now. But this story takes me back to when I was 28, living in a quiet suburb just outside Seattle. Rain was our constant companion there, soft at first, then pounding like it wanted to wash away all your secrets. I had a little house on Elm Street, the kind with a creaky porch and a swing that swayed even when no one sat on it. It was my sanctuary after a long day at the library, where I worked as a children's storyteller. You know, the one who makes voices for dragons and happy endings for lost little girls. Ironic, isn't it? Because in my own life, the endings were never so tidy. I grew up in a house full of shadows. My mom, Lydia, was the light, or at least that's what she wanted everyone to see. Tall, with that perfect auburn hair always pinned just so, she ran a small bakery downtown. People adored her apple pies and her warm smiles. Family first, she'd say, while handing out free cookies to neighbors. But behind closed doors, her warmth was selective. It flowed to me because I was the good one, the daughter who never caused trouble, who got straight A's and volunteered at church. I was her mirror, reflecting back the version of herself she liked best. Then there was my little sister, Grace. Oh, Grace. She was 4 years younger than me, with eyes like storm clouds and a laugh that could chase away the rain. But Grace was born different. The doctors called it cerebral palsy. She walked with a limp that twisted her steps into a quiet dance, and her hands trembled when she tried to hold a cup. Mom never said it out loud, but I saw the flicker in her eyes, the resentment, like Grace had stolen something from her perfect life. Why her? Mom would whisper to Dad late at night when she thought I was asleep. Dad, God rest him, he passed when I was 16 from a heart attack. After that, the house got colder. Grace and I clung to each other, two girls against the chill. As we grew up, I became Grace's shield. I'd help her with homework, tie her shoes when her fingers wouldn't cooperate, and lie to Mom about the bullies at school who called her the cripple. That word. It was a knife, sharp and ugly. I hated it, but Mom, she let it slip sometimes like it was just a fact. Poor Grace, always holding us back, she'd sigh, as if my sister was a weight instead of a wonder. Grace tried so hard to paint with shaky brushes, to dance in her own uneven rhythm. She dreamed of being an artist, filling canvases with colors that made the world brighter. I believed in her. I always did. By the time I moved out, Grace was 24, still living with Mom. She worked part-time at a coffee shop, charming customers with her stories despite the spill she might make now and then. We'd talk every night on the phone, her voice a lifeline in my quiet house. Elena, guess what I drew today? A sunset that bleeds into the sea. I'd laugh and say, show me soon, okay? We'll frame it together. But lately, her calls had grown shorter, her energy fading. Mom's been tired, she'd say, and I'd hear the unspoken hurt. That rainy autumn, things felt off. Mom started canceling our family dinners, claiming the bakery kept her late. Grace stopped mentioning her paintings. I chalked it up to stress, life's way of testing us. But deep down, a whisper nagged at me. What if the shadows in our house were growing longer? It was October 12th, a Thursday I'll never forget. The clock had just chimed midnight when my phone buzzed on the nightstand. I was curled up with a book, tea gone cold beside me. Grace's name lit up the screen. Hey, sis. Can't sleep. Can I come over? Just for a bit? Her voice cracked like she was fighting tears. I didn't hesitate. Of course, Grace, door's always open. 20 minutes later, her knock came, soft, hesitant, like she was afraid to disturb the night. I opened the door to find her soaked, her dark hair plastered to her face, one hand gripping the railing for support. Rain poured in sheets, turning the porch into a river. Elena, she whispered, and then her knees buckled. She collapsed right there, her body folding like a broken bird, a gasp escaping her lips as she hit the wet wood. My heart stopped. Grace. Oh God, Grace. I dropped to my knees, cradling her head, feeling the unnatural heat radiating from her skin. Fever, exhaustion, something worse? Her eyes fluttered, half open, murmuring my name like a prayer. Panic clawed at my chest. I fumbled for my phone, fingers slick with rain, dialing 911. But as the operator's voice began, "Emergency services, what's your—" Another buzz cut through. A text from Mom, Lydia, my own mother. I glanced at it, still holding Grace's limp hand, and the world tilted. "Don't save that cripple. She's not worth the trouble. Let her go." The words burned into my eyes, cold and final, like a door slamming shut forever. My thumb froze over the call button. Let her go? My sister, my heart, my everything, lying here in the rain, and Mom wanted me to just watch her fade? A sob caught in my throat, hot and ragged. How? How could she type that? In the dead of night, while her daughter fought for breath? I looked down at Grace, her chest rising in shallow waves, her lips pale as moonlight. And in that moment, the hook of betrayal sank deep. Not just the words, but the years behind them. The sidelong glances, the sighs, the way Mom had always made Grace feel small. I was the good daughter, but was I blind? Had I let this poison fester while I built my safe little life? The operator's voice pulled me back. "Ma'am, are you there?" My hand trembled, but I pressed send on the call. "Yes," I whispered, voice breaking. "My sister. She's collapsed outside my house. She's not okay." As I gave the address, tears mixed with the rain on my face. Mom's text glowed like an accusation on the screen beside me. Don't save her. But I already had. And in doing so, I was saving myself from the lie we'd all lived. But what I didn't know that night was how far back this darkness went. How one text had ripped open wounds I'd bandaged over for years. As the ambulance lights flashed in the distance, cutting through the storm like a promise, I held Grace close and whispered, "I'm here. I won't let go." Little did I realize this was only the beginning. The real storm, the one that would test every bond I thought was unbreakable, was just breaking. Paramedics arrived in a blur of blue uniforms and urgent voices. They lifted Grace onto a stretcher, her body so fragile under the fluorescent glare. I rode with her in the ambulance, clutching her hand as the sirens wailed into the night. The doctor at the ER was kind but grave. Exhaustion, dehydration, and a severe infection from an untreated injury on her leg. She's been pushing too hard, ignoring the signs. Untreated? Grace with her shaky hands must have hidden the pain. But why? The question gnawed at me as they wheeled her away for tests. I sat in the waiting room, the sterile hum of machines mocking my racing thoughts. My phone felt like a brick in my pocket. Mom's text unread now, but etched into my soul. I should call her, I thought. Tell her Grace is fighting. But anger bubbled up, hot and unfamiliar. Instead, I scrolled back through old messages. Grace's pleas for help, masked as jokes. Mom says I'm fine, but my leg hurts today. Don't worry. And Mom's replies curt, dismissive. Stop babying her, Elena. She needs to toughen up. Toughen up? Grace, who painted sunflowers to brighten Mom's gray days. Who forgave every slight with a smile? The realization hit like a wave crashing over me. Mom had been eroding her for years. It started small after Dad died. Mom's bakery boomed, but so did her bitterness. Your father worked himself to death for this family, and what does she give back? Nothing but burdens. I'd overheard her once on the phone with Aunt Clara. Grace was 18 then, trying to enroll in art school. Mom blocked it. She can't even walk straight. How will she manage classes? Waste of money. I confronted her that day, voice shaking in the kitchen floor dusted with pie crusts. Mom, Grace has talent. She deserves a chance. She turned, eyes narrowing like I'd betrayed her. You always take her side, Elena. You're supposed to be the strong one. Don't drag yourself down with her. Drag down. As if Grace was an anchor, not a sister. From then on, the divide grew. Mom doted on me. Invitations to galas, shared secrets over wine. Grace got chores in silence. Help your sister, Mom would say, but it was code for fix what I can't stand. By her 20s, Grace had internalized it. She stopped asking for help, hid her flares of pain behind forced laughs. I'd visit, see the canvases gathering dust in her room, and my heart would ache. Paint again, Grace. For you. She'd nod, but her eyes were distant. Mom says it's a hobby, not a life. A hobby. As if her dreams were playthings to be shelved. That infection? It wasn't just an injury. It was neglect. Grace confessed later from her hospital bed, IV dripping life back into her veins. I fell at home last week. Mom saw the cut, said to walk it off. You're not helpless, Grace. Stop acting like it. Her voice was a whisper, eyes downcast. I didn't want to bother you, Elena. You have your own life. Bother me? She was my world. But Mom's words had woven doubt into her bones, making her believe she was unworthy. Shock turned to heartbreak as I pieced it together. All those canceled dinners? Mom avoiding the sight of Grace's limp. The late-night texts I'd ignored, Grace venting about feeling invisible. I'd reassured her. Mom loves you, she just worries. But it was a lie I told myself too. Betrayal isn't always a knife in the back. Sometimes it's a slow poison, dropped in the tea you share every morning. I paced the hospital corridor as dawn broke, gray light filtering through rain-streaked windows. Nurses bustled past, lives intersecting in quiet emergencies. My own emergency was unfolding inside me. A war between the daughter who wanted to forgive and the woman who saw the truth. Mom called then, her ringtone slicing the air like a summons. I let it go to voicemail, but she left one. Elena, is Grace with you? She didn't come home last night. Don't make this dramatic. Dramatic. As if her daughter's life hanging by a thread was a scene from one of my storybooks. Rage simmered, but beneath it, grief. For the mom I wished she was. The one who'd bandage knees and cheer at recitals. For Grace, robbed of her spark. And for me, the enabler who'd stayed silent to keep the peace. No more. As Grace stabilized, color returning to her cheeks, I made a vow in that sterile room. I'd protect her. Not just from the infection harming her body, but from the one poisoning our family. Revenge? It wasn't about hurting Mom. It was about exposing the lie, forcing her to see the daughter she'd tried to erase. And in doing so, reclaiming the love we'd lost, but planning that. It started with a single trembling step. I sat by Grace's bed, her hand warm in mine now, and whispered, "We're getting out of this, sis. Together." She smiled faintly, trusting me like always. Little did she know the real fight was just beginning. The one that would drag our secrets into the light and change us forever. Grace pulled through, thank God. 2 weeks in the hospital, antibiotics fighting the fire in her blood, and slowly she came back to me. Not the full Grace, not yet, but enough to sit up, sketch pad in lap, drawing the nurses with exaggerated halos. Angels in scrubs, she called them. I laughed, but it was hollow. Mom's text haunted me, a ghost in every quiet moment. I hadn't told Grace, how could I? It would shatter her more than the fever ever did. Discharge day arrived like a fragile truce. I drove her to my house on Elm Street, the porch still bearing faint scars from that night's rain. Mom showed up unannounced, flowers in hand, pink roses, Grace's favorite. My girl, she cooed, leaning in for a hug that Grace returned weakly. I stood frozen in the doorway, watching the performance. Mom, you didn't have to come, Grace murmured, but her eyes sought mine, confused by the chill in the air. We settled in the living room, tea steaming on the coffee table. Mom chattered about the bakery, new pie recipes, as if nothing had fractured. You gave us such a scare, Grace, but look at you, strong as ever. Strong. The word twisted like a barb. I couldn't hold it in anymore. As Mom reached for her cup, I slid my phone across the table, the text open like an accusation. Read this, I said, voice steady but laced with steel. From you. 2:17 a.m., her face drained of color, eyes flicking to the screen. Elena, that's not what you think. Grace leaned forward, brow furrowing. What is it? Mom snatched the phone, deleting the message with frantic thumbs. A misunderstanding. I was half asleep, worried sick. You know how texts get twisted? Twisted? I felt the shift then, from broken daughter to avenger. No more hiding. Half asleep? You told me to let her die, Mom. Called her, that word, the one you've whispered for years. Grace gasped, hand flying to her mouth. Mom's mask cracked, eyes darting like a cornered animal. I was angry. She keeps falling, dragging us all down. Your father... Don't, I cut in, voice rising like the storm we'd weathered. Dad loved Grace. He saw her light, not your shadows. The room thickened with unspoken years, the canceled art classes, the hidden medical bills Mom forgot to pay, the way she'd steer conversations away from Grace's dreams. It poured out then, my words a dam breaking. Grace listened, tears tracing silent paths down her cheeks, pieces clicking into place. Mom stood, roses forgotten. You're turning this against me? After everything I've sacrificed? Sacrificed. For the bakery, for her image, for a family without flaws. But I was done excusing it. Grace isn't a sacrifice. She's your daughter. That night, as Mom stormed out, vowing to fix this, I held Grace while she wept, not just for the pain, but for the love she'd chased like a mirage. The revenge unfolded not in shouts, but in quiet resolve. First, I helped Grace apply to that art program she'd dreamed of, online classes, flexible for her needs. We submitted her portfolio together, her shaky lines blooming into bold colors on the screen. Acceptance came a week later, and her joy. It was sunlight after endless rain. "Elena, I can do this?" "You always could," I whispered. But Mom wouldn't let go easily. She called daily, guilt-tripping. "Think of the family, Elena. Grace will fail without me." Fail? The word that had chained us. So I planned deeper. I reached out to Aunt Clara, the one who'd heard Mom's whispers years ago. "Tell me everything," I said. And she did. The fights after Dad's death, Mom blaming Grace for his stress, the insurance payout she'd hoarded instead of using for therapy. Piece by piece, I gathered the truths Mom had buried. The climax came at Thanksgiving, our family's hollow tradition. Mom hosted, the table set with crystal and lies. Grace and I arrived together, her cane tapping a defiant rhythm. Midway through turkey and forced smiles, I stood, voice carrying like a storyteller's tale. Before dessert, a toast. To family, not the one we pretend, but the one we choose. I pulled out my phone. Not the text, but a recording, Clara's words. Grace's hospital confessions, even Mom's own voicemails admitting the resentment. "Listen, everyone," I said, hitting play. Aunts, uncles, cousins frozen as Mom's voice filled the room. She's always been the weak link. The fallout was swift, cinematic in its unraveling. Mom's face crumpled, not in fury, but defeat, the mask gone, revealing the scared woman beneath. I didn't mean. But the guests saw. Whispers turned to questions, Clara pulling Grace aside with hugs long overdue. Mom fled to the kitchen, sobs echoing. I followed, not for comfort, but closure. "This isn't punishment, Mom. It's truth. You shut Grace out, but she deserves the light, and so do I." She collapsed into a chair, hands trembling like Grace's once did. "I was afraid. After your father." She reminded me of losing him. The worry, the weakness. I pushed her away to protect myself. Protect. The word hung, heavy with regret. For the first time, I saw her, not the villain, but the broken one. We talked till midnight, tears mingling with confessions. No grand apology, but a start, a promise to try therapy, to let Grace shine. Grace moved in with me after that, her studio blooming in the spare room. Her first exhibit came 6 months. Later, canvases of storms turning to sunrises, sold to strangers who saw her soul in every stroke. Mom attended, standing in the back, eyes wet. We haven't healed fully. Some cracks stay. But the poison? It's drained. Looking back, that 2 a.m. text wasn't the end. It was the door cracking open. Betrayal hurts deepest from those we trust most, but it also forges us stronger. I learned that family isn't blood alone. It's the choice to hold on when others let go. To dial 911 for the soul beside you, even when your own heart screams to run. And in the quiet after the storm, peace isn't victory over them. It's freedom for you. So ask yourself, listener, who's collapsing on your porch tonight? Will you save them? Or let the rain decide? If this story stirred something in you, hit that like button. Share your own whispers in the comments. Remember, your voice can be the lifeline. Until next time, hold tight to your light.